Welcome to Tech with Kaushik. This is part 9 of our complete practice question series for the CLF-C02 AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner exam. Choose your answer before the timer ends, then review the correct answer, explanation, and exam tip. Let us begin part 9. Question number 445. An organization will run a predictable compute workload on Amazon EC2 instances for the next 3 years. The workload is critical for the company. The company needs to optimize costs to run the workload. What solution can satisfy these requirements? Option A: spot instances. Option B: dedicated hosts. Option C: savings plans. Option D: on-demand instances. The correct answer is C: savings plans. Here is why. Savings plans reduce eligible compute costs in exchange for a 1-year or 3-year commitment and suit predictable critical workloads. Why are the other options not correct? A. Spot instances can be interrupted and do not suit a critical workload. B. Dedicated hosts address licensing or physical isolation needs. D. On-demand instances provide flexibility without commitment discounts. Exam tip. Savings plans reduce costs for predictable committed compute usage. Question number 446. What AWS service or feature gives users the ability to connect VPCs and on-premises networks to a central hub? Option A: Virtual Private Gateway. Option B: AWS Transit Gateway. Option C: Internet Gateway. Option D: Customer Gateway. The correct answer is B. AWS Transit Gateway. Here is why. Transit Gateway acts as a central network hub that connects multiple VPCs and on-premises networks through attachments. Why are the other options not correct? A. A virtual private gateway is a VPN endpoint attached to one VPC. C. An Internet gateway connects a VPC to the Internet. D. A customer gateway represents the customer-side device for a VPN. Exam tip. Transit Gateway provides hub-and-spoke connectivity for many networks. Question number 447. An organization is moving some of its on-premises IT services to the AWS cloud. The finance department needs to see the entire bill so it can forecast spending limits. What AWS service can the company use to set spending limits and receive notifications if those limits are exceeded? Option A: AWS Cost and Usage Reports. Option B: AWS Budgets. Option C: AWS Organizations Consolidated Billing. Option D: Cost Explorer. The correct answer is B. AWS Budgets. Here is why. AWS Budgets defines cost or usage thresholds and sends alerts when actual or forecasted spending reaches or exceeds those limits. Why are the other options not correct? A. Cost and usage reports provide detailed billing records. C. Consolidated billing combines charges across organization accounts. D. Cost Explorer analyzes cost and usage trends. Exam tip. Budgets alerts on limits, Cost Explorer analyzes spending. Question number 448. What feature of Amazon RDS provides the ability to automatically create a primary database instance and to synchronously replicate data to an instance in another availability zone? Option A: Read replicas. Option B: blue/green deployment. Option C: multi-availability zone deployment. Option D: reserved instances. The correct answer is C: multi-availability zone deployment. Here is why. RDS multi-availability zone creates a standby database in another availability zone and synchronously replicates data for high availability and failover. Why are the other options not correct? A. Read replicas primarily support read scaling and use asynchronous replication. B. Blue/green deployments provide separate environments for safer updates. D. Reserved instances provide billing discounts. Exam tip. Multi-availability zone provides availability, RAID replicas provide RAID scaling. Question number 449. An organization runs many Amazon EC2 instances in its VPC. The company needs to use a native AWS security resource to control network traffic between certain EC2 instances. What AWS service or feature can satisfy this requirement? Option A, Network ACLs. Option B, AWS WAF. Option C, Amazon Guard Duty. Option D, Security Groups. The correct answer is D, Security Groups. Here is why. Security groups are stateful virtual firewalls that control inbound and outbound traffic for associated EC2 instances. Why are the other options not correct? A. Network ACLs control traffic at the subnet boundary. B. AWS WAF filters supported HTTP and HTTPS web requests. C. Guard Duty detects potential threats but does not enforce traffic rules. Exam tip. Security groups protect instances, network ACLs protect subnets. Question number 450. An organization hosts its website on Amazon EC2 instances. The company needs to ensure that the website reaches a global audience and provides minimum latency to users. What AWS service should the company use to satisfy these requirements? Option A, Amazon Route 53. Option B, Amazon CloudFront. Option C, Elastic Load Balancing. Option D, AWS Lambda. The correct answer is B, Amazon CloudFront. Here is why. CloudFront caches and delivers website content through global edge locations, reducing latency for users around the world. Why are the other options not correct? A. Route 53 provides DNS and traffic routing but does not cache website content. C. Elastic load balancing distributes traffic across targets, usually in a region. D. Lambda runs event-driven code without managing servers. Exam tip. CloudFront uses edge locations for low-latency global content delivery. Question number 451. What options are AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, AWS CAF, perspectives? Choose 2. Option A, Cloud Fluency. Option B, Security. Option C, Change Acceleration. Option D, Architecture. E, Business. The correct answer is B, Security, E, Business. Here is why. Security and business are 2 of the 6 AWS CAF perspectives. Security protects workloads, while business connects cloud investments to outcomes. Why are the other options not correct? A. Cloud fluency is a capability within the people perspective. C. Change acceleration is a capability within the people perspective. D. Architecture is not one of the 6 AWS CAF perspectives. Exam tip. AWS CAF perspectives are business, people, governance, platform, security, and operations. Question number 452. An organization needs to store its files in the AWS cloud. Users need to be able to download these files directly using a public URL. What AWS service or feature can satisfy this requirement? Option A, Amazon Redshift. Option B, Amazon Elastic Block Store, Amazon EBS. Option C, Amazon Elastic File System, Amazon EFS. Option D, Amazon S3. The correct answer is D, Amazon S3. Here is why. Amazon S3 provides scalable object storage and can make permitted objects available for direct download through a URL. Why are the other options not correct? A. Amazon Redshift is a managed data warehouse. B. Amazon EBS provides block storage for compute instances. C. Amazon EFS provides shared file storage through file system protocols. Exam tip. Use S3 for objects that applications or users access through URLs. Question number 453. An organization stores a large amount of data that auditors access only twice each year. What Amazon S3 storage class should the company use to store the data with the lowest cost? Option A, Amazon S3 Outposts. Option B, Amazon S3 Glacier Instant Retrieval. Option C, Amazon S3 Standard. Option D, Amazon S3 Intelligent Tiering. The correct answer is B, Amazon S3 Glacier Instant Retrieval. Here is why. S3 Glacier Instant Retrieval provides low-cost storage for long-lived data that is rarely accessed but must remain immediately available. Why are the other options not correct? A. S3 Outpost stores data on customer premises and is not the lowest cost option. C. S3 Standard is designed for frequently accessed data and costs more. D. Intelligent tiering is useful when access patterns are unknown or changing. Exam tip. Glacier Instant Retrieval suits rarely accessed archives needing millisecond retrieval. Question number 454. An organization needs to manage its cloud resources by using infrastructure as code, LAC, templates. The company needs to meet compliance requirements. What AWS service should the company use to satisfy these requirements? Option A. AWS Artifact. Option B. AWS Resource Explorer. Option C. AWS License Manager. Option D. AWS Service Catalog. The correct answer is D. AWS Service Catalog. Here is why. Service Catalog distributes approved infrastructure products from infrastructure as code templates and applies controls that support organizational compliance. Why are the other options not correct? A. Artifact provides compliance reports and agreements. B. Resource Explorer searches for AWS resources. C. License Manager tracks and controls software license usage. Exam tip. Service Catalog governs approved infrastructure as code products for self-service deployment. Question number 455. An organization runs Amazon EC2 instances in a research lab. The instances run for 3 hours each week and cannot be interrupted. What is the most cost-effective instance purchasing option to satisfy these requirements? Option A, Compute Savings Plan. Option B, On-Demand Instances. Option C, Convertible Reserved Instances. Option D, Spot Instances. The correct answer is B. On-Demand Instances. Here is why. On-demand instances require no commitment and cannot be reclaimed like spot capacity, suiting brief workloads that must not be interrupted. Why are the other options not correct? A. A savings plan commitment is inefficient for only 3 hours of weekly use. C. Convertible reserved instances require a long-term commitment. D. Spot instances can be interrupted before the research work finishes. Exam tip. Use on-demand for short, infrequent workloads that cannot be interrupted. Question number 456. A user is moving a workload from a local data center to an architecture that is distributed between the local data center and the AWS cloud. What type of migration is this? Option A. On-premises to cloud native. Option B. Hybrid to cloud native. Option C. On-premises to hybrid. Option D. Cloud native to hybrid. The correct answer is C. On-premises to hybrid. Here is why. The workload begins entirely on-premises and moves to an architecture that combines the local data center with AWS cloud resources. Why are the other options not correct? A. Cloud native would move the workload fully to a cloud-designed architecture. B. The starting environment is on-premises, not already hybrid. D. The starting environment is not cloud native. Exam tip. Hybrid architectures combine on-premises infrastructure with cloud resources. Question number 457. What statements represent the cost-effectiveness of the AWS cloud? Choose 2. Option A, users can trade fixed expenses for variable expenses. Option B, users can deploy all over the world in minutes. Option C. AWS offers increased speed and agility. Option D. AWS is responsible for patching the infrastructure. E. Users benefit from economies of scale. The correct answer is A. Users can trade fixed expenses for variable expenses. E. Users benefit from economies of scale. Here is why. AWS replaces many upfront infrastructure costs with usage-based spending and lowers unit costs through large-scale cloud operations. Why are the other options not correct? B. Worldwide deployment demonstrates global reach. C. Speed and agility concern rapid experimentation and deployment. D. Infrastructure patching is a shared responsibility benefit, not cloud economics. Exam tip. Cloud cost benefits include variable expense and economies of scale. Question number 458. Which one of the following is an advantage that the AWS cloud provides to users? Option A. Users eliminate the need to guess about infrastructure capacity requirements. Option B. Users decrease their variable costs by maintaining sole ownership of IT hardware. Option C. Users maintain control of underlying IT infrastructure hardware. Option D. Users maintain control of operating systems for managed services. The correct answer is A. Users eliminate the need to guess about infrastructure capacity requirements. Here is why. AWS resources can scale with demand, reducing the need to purchase capacity in advance based on uncertain forecasts. Why are the other options not correct? B. Owning hardware preserves fixed costs and maintenance responsibilities. C. AWS manages the underlying cloud infrastructure hardware. D. AWS manages operating systems for managed services. Exam tip. Elastic cloud capacity reduces over-provisioning and capacity shortages. Question number 459. Which one of the following can be components of a VPC in the AWS cloud? Choose 2. Option A, Amazon API Gateway. Option B, Amazon S3 Buckets and Objects. Option C. AWS Storage Gateway. Option D, Internet Gateway. E. Subnet. The correct answer is D. Internet Gateway, E. Subnet. Here is why. A subnet is an IP address range within a VPC, and an Internet Gateway can attach to a VPC to support Internet connectivity. Why are the other options not correct? A. API Gateway is a managed API service, not a VPC component. B. S3 buckets and objects are not contained inside a VPC. C. Storage Gateway connects on-premises applications with AWS storage. Exam tip. Core VPC components include subnets, route tables, and gateways. Question number 460. What AWS service provides users with AWS-issued reports, certifications, accreditations, and third-party attestations? Option A. AWS Artifact. Option B. AWS Trusted Advisor. Option C. AWS Health Dashboard. Option D. AWS Config. The correct answer is A. AWS Artifact. Here is why. AWS Artifact provides on-demand access to AWS compliance reports, certifications, accreditations, agreements, and third-party attestations. Why are the other options not correct? B. Trusted Advisor provides best practice checks and recommendations. C. AWS Health Reports service and account health events. D. AWS Config tracks resource configurations and evaluates compliance rules. Exam tip. Use Artifact to obtain AWS compliance reports and agreements. Question number 461. An organization needs to consolidate the billing from multiple AWS accounts. The company needs to use one account to pay on behalf of all the other accounts. What AWS service or tool should the company use to satisfy this requirement? Option A. AWS Trusted Advisor. Option B. AWS Organizations. Option C. AWS Budgets. Option D. AWS Service Catalog. The correct answer is B. AWS Organizations. Here is why. AWS Organizations provides consolidated billing so one management account can pay charges for all member accounts. Why are the other options not correct? A. Trusted Advisor provides best practice recommendations. C. AWS Budgets track spending against thresholds. D. Service Catalog distributes approved cloud products. Exam tip. Organizations combines account bills while preserving account boundaries. Question number 462. An organization needs to check for IAM access keys that have not been rotated recently. What AWS service should the company use to satisfy this requirement? Option A. AWS WAF. Option B. AWS Shield. Option C. Amazon Cognito. Option D. AWS Trusted Advisor. The correct answer is D. AWS Trusted Advisor. Here is why. Trusted Advisor includes an IAM access key rotation security check that identifies access keys that have not been rotated recently. Why are the other options not correct? A. AWS WAF filters supported web requests. B. AWS Shield provides DDoS protection. C. Amazon Cognito manages identities for web and mobile applications. Exam tip. Trusted Advisor security checks can identify aging IAM access keys. Question number 463. What AWS service or feature can a user configure to limit network access at the subnet level? Option A. AWS Shield. Option B. AWS WAF. Option C. Network ACL. Option D. Security Group. The correct answer is C. Network ACL. Here is why. A network ACL is a stateless firewall that controls inbound and outbound traffic at the subnet boundary. Why are the other options not correct? A. AWS Shield provides DDoS protection. B. AWS WAF filters supported HTTP and HTTPS requests. D. Security groups control traffic for associated resources, such as EC2 instances. Exam tip. Network ACLs protect subnets, security groups protect resources. Question number 464. An organization needs to enhance security by launching a third-party ISP intrusion detection system from its AWS account. What AWS service or resource should the company use to satisfy this requirement? Option A. AWS Security Hub. Option B. AWS Marketplace. Option C. AWS Quick Starts. Option D. AWS Security Center. The correct answer is B. AWS Marketplace. Here is why. AWS Marketplace provides third-party security software and virtual appliances, including intrusion detection and prevention products. Why are the other options not correct? A. Security Hub aggregates security findings from AWS and partner products. C. AWS Quick Starts provide deployment guidance and automated reference deployments. D. AWS Security Center is not the AWS service for purchasing third-party software. Exam tip. Use AWS Marketplace to find and deploy third-party security appliances. Question number 465. An organization needs to maintain bandwidth throughput and provide a more consistent network experience than public internet-based connections. What AWS service should the company choose? Option A. AWS VPN. Option B. AWS Direct Connect. Option C. Amazon Connect. Option D. Amazon CloudFront. The correct answer is B. AWS Direct Connect. Here is why. Direct Connect provides dedicated connectivity to AWS that can deliver more consistent bandwidth and performance than internet-based links. Why are the other options not correct? A. AWS VPN uses encrypted connections over the public internet. C. Amazon Connect is a cloud contact center service. D. CloudFront is a content delivery network. Exam tip. Direct Connect provides dedicated connectivity, VPN runs over the internet. Question number 466. An organization is connecting multiple VPCs and on-premises networks. The company needs to use an AWS service as a cloud router to simplify peering relationships. What AWS service can the company use to satisfy this requirement? Option A. AWS Direct Connect. Option B. AWS Transit Gateway. Option C. Amazon Connect. Option D. Amazon Route 53. The correct answer is B. AWS Transit Gateway. Here is why. Transit Gateway acts as a central cloud router that connects many VPCs and on-premises networks while simplifying complex peering relationships. Why are the other options not correct? A. Direct Connect provides dedicated external connectivity to AWS. C. Amazon Connect is a cloud contact center service. D. Route 53 provides DNS and traffic routing services. Exam tip. Transit Gateway provides hub-and-spoke connectivity for many networks. Question number 467. An organization wants its Amazon EC2 instances to operate in a highly available environment, even if there is a natural disaster in a particular geographic area. What solution achieves this goal? Option A. Use EC2 instances in multiple AWS regions. Option B. Use EC2 instances in multiple edge locations. Option C. Use EC2 instances in the same availability zone but in different AWS regions. Option D. Use Amazon CloudFront with the EC2 instances configured as the source. The correct answer is A. Use EC2 instances in multiple AWS regions. Here is why. Multiple regions provide geographic separation so the workload can remain available if a disaster affects an entire geographic area. Why are the other options not correct? B. Edge locations do not host general-purpose EC2 application fleets. C. One availability zone cannot exist in multiple regions. D. CloudFront improves content delivery but does not replace regional compute. Exam tip. Multi-availability zone protects against availability zone failure, multi-region addresses regional disasters. Question number 468. An organization needs to implement detailed tracking of its cloud costs by department and project. What AWS feature or service should the company use? Option A. Consolidated billing. Option B. Cost allocation tags. Option C. AWS Marketplace. Option D. AWS budgets. The correct answer is B. Cost allocation tags. Here is why. Cost allocation tags label resources by department, project, or other business category for detailed cost filtering and reporting. Why are the other options not correct? A. Consolidated billing combines charges from multiple accounts. C. AWS Marketplace provides third-party products and services. D. AWS budgets track spending against configured thresholds. Exam tip. Use cost allocation tags to categorize costs by team, project, or owner. Question number 469. A user needs to invoke an AWS Lambda function when an Amazon EC2 instance enters the stopping state. What AWS service is appropriate for this use case? Option A, Amazon Event Bridge. Option B, AWS Config. Option C, Amazon Simple Notification Service, Amazon SNS. Option D, AWS CloudFormation. The correct answer is A, Amazon Event Bridge. Here is why. Event Bridge can match an EC2 instance state change event and invoke a Lambda function automatically when the instance enters the stopping state. Why are the other options not correct? B. AWS Config records resource configurations and evaluates compliance. C. Amazon SNS distributes messages but does not directly match EC2 state events. D. CloudFormation provisions infrastructure from templates. Exam tip. Event Bridge routes matching AWS service events to automated targets. Question number 470. A systems administrator needs to monitor the CPU utilization of a company's Amazon EC2 instances. What AWS service can provide this information? Option A, AWS Config. Option B, AWS Trusted Advisor. Option C, AWS Cloud Trail. Option D, Amazon Cloud Watch. The correct answer is D, Amazon Cloud Watch. Here is why. Cloud Watch collects EC2 metrics such as CPU utilization and displays them through metrics, dashboards, and alarms. Why are the other options not correct? A. AWS Config tracks resource configuration and compliance. B. Trusted Advisor provides best practice recommendations. C. Cloud Trail records supported AWS API and account activity. Exam tip. CloudWatch monitors metrics, Cloud Trail records API activity. Question number 471. A retail company is building a new mobile app. The company is evaluating whether to build the app at an on-premises data center or in the AWS cloud. Which of the following are benefits of building this app in the AWS cloud? Choose 2. Option A. A large, upfront capital expense and low variable expenses. Option B, increased speed for trying out new projects. Option C, complete control over the physical security of the infrastructure. Option D, flexibility to scale up in minutes as the application becomes popular. E, ability to pick the specific data centers that will host the application servers. The correct answer is B, increased speed for trying out new projects. D, flexibility to scale up in minutes as the application becomes popular. Here is why. AWS enables rapid experimentation and on-demand scaling without waiting for physical infrastructure procurement. Why are the other options not correct? A. AWS reduces the need for large upfront capital expenses. C. AWS controls physical infrastructure security. E. Customers select regions and availability zones, not specific data centers. Exam tip. Cloud agility accelerates experiments, elasticity adjusts capacity quickly. Question number 472. An organization needs a firewall that will control network connections to and from a single Amazon EC2 instance. This firewall will not control network connections to and from other instances that are in the same subnet. What AWS service or feature can the company use to satisfy these requirements? Option A, Network ACL. Option B, AWS WAF. Option C, Route Table. Option D, Security Group. The correct answer is D, Security Group. Here is why. A security group is a stateful virtual firewall that controls inbound and outbound traffic for an associated EC2 instance. Why are the other options not correct? A. A network ACL applies to every supported resource in a subnet. B. AWS WAF filters web requests at supported application entry points. C. A route table determines traffic routes but does not act as an instance firewall. Exam tip. Security groups control instance traffic, network ACLs control subnet traffic. Question number 473. An organization needs to use a centralized AWS service to enforce compliance with the organizational business standards. The company wants to use an AWS service that can govern and control who can deploy, manage, and decommission AWS resources. What AWS service can satisfy these requirements? Option A. Amazon CloudWatch. Option B. AWS Service Catalog. Option C. Amazon GuardDuty. Option D. AWS Security Hub. The correct answer is B. AWS Service Catalog. Here is why. Service Catalog centrally manages approved cloud products and controls which users can provision, manage, and terminate those products. Why are the other options not correct? A. CloudWatch monitors resources and applications. C. GuardDuty detects potential threats. D. Security Hub aggregates and prioritizes security findings. Exam tip. Service Catalog governs approved products and self-service provisioning. Question number 474. What AWS solution gives companies the ability to use protocols such as NFS to store and retrieve objects in Amazon S3? Option A. Amazon FSx for Lustre. Option B. AWS Storage Gateway Volume Gateway. Option C. AWS Storage Gateway File Gateway. Option D. Amazon Elastic File System, Amazon EFS. The correct answer is C. AWS Storage Gateway File Gateway. Here is why. An Amazon S3 file gateway presents file shares through protocols such as NFS while storing the files as objects in Amazon S3. Why are the other options not correct? A. FSx for Lustre provides a high-performance file system. B. Volume Gateway presents block storage through the ISCSI protocol. D. Amazon EFS provides NFS file storage but does not store files as S3 objects. Exam tip. File Gateway maps NFS or SMB file access to objects in Amazon S3. Question number 475. An organization wants a report that lists the status of multi-factor authentication, MFA, devices that all users in a company's AWS account use. What AWS feature or service can satisfy this requirement? Option A. AWS Cost and Usage Reports. Option B. IAM Credential Reports. Option C. Detailed Billing Reports. D. AWS Cost Explorer Reports. The correct answer is B. IAM Credential Reports. Here is why. An IAM credential report lists IAM users and shows the status of their passwords, access keys, and assigned MFA devices. Why are the other options not correct? A. Cost and usage reports contain detailed billing and usage records. C. Detailed billing reports do not report IAM credential status. D. Cost Explorer reports analyze AWS spending and usage. Exam tip. IAM credential reports provide account-wide user credential and MFA status. Question number 476. An organization needs to design its cloud architecture so that it can support development innovations, and continuously improve processes and procedures. This is an example of which pillar of the AWS well-architected framework? Option A. Security. Option B. Performance efficiency. Option C. Operational excellence. Option D. Reliability. The correct answer is C. Operational excellence. Here is why. Operational excellence emphasizes supporting development, improving procedures, learning from events, and continuously refining operations. Why are the other options not correct? A. Security focuses on protecting data, systems, and assets. B. Performance efficiency focuses on efficient use of computing resources. D. Reliability focuses on consistent operation and recovery from failures. Exam tip. Continuous process and operational improvement indicate operational excellence. Question number 477. An organization is building a new application on AWS. The company needs the application to remain available if an individual application component fails. What design principle should the company use to satisfy this requirement? Option A. Disposable resources. Option B. Automation. Option C. Right-sizing. Option D. Loose coupling. The correct answer is D. Loose coupling. Here is why. Loose coupling isolates dependencies, so the failure of one application component is less likely to make the entire application unavailable. Why are the other options not correct? A. Disposable resources make replacement easier but do not isolate dependencies. B. Automation reduces manual work but does not alone contain component failure. C. Right-sizing matches resource capacity to workload needs. Exam tip. Loose coupling limits cascading failures between application components. Question number 478. Under the AWS shared responsibility model, which task is the customer's responsibility? Option A. Maintaining the infrastructure needed to run AWS Lambda. Option B. Updating the operating system of Amazon DynamoDB instances. Option C. Maintaining Amazon S3 infrastructure. Option D. Updating the guest operating system on Amazon EC2 instances. The correct answer is D. Updating the guest operating system on Amazon EC2 instances. Here is why. EC2 customers manage the guest operating system, including updates, security patches, installed applications, and configuration. Why are the other options not correct? A. AWS maintains the infrastructure that operates AWS Lambda. B. AWS manages the infrastructure and operating system for DynamoDB. C. AWS maintains the underlying Amazon S3 infrastructure. Exam tip. Customers patch EC2 guest systems, AWS patches managed service infrastructure. Question number 479. An organization needs to use AWS. The company has stringent requirements about low-latency access to on-premises systems and data. Residency. What AWS service should the company use to design a solution that meets these requirements? Option A. AWS Wavelength. Option B. AWS Transit Gateway. Option C. AWS Ground Station. Option D. AWS Outposts. The correct answer is D. AWS Outposts. Here is why. Outposts places AWS infrastructure at an on-premises location, supporting low-latency local access and workloads with data residency needs. Why are the other options not correct? A. Wavelength places AWS services within telecommunications provider networks. B. Transit Gateway connects VPCs and on-premises networks through a central hub. C. Ground Station communicates with and processes data from satellites. Exam tip. Outposts extends AWS infrastructure and services into customer locations. Question number 480. What AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, AWS CAF, perspective focuses on organizing an inventory of data products in a data catalog? Option A. Operations. Option B. Governance. Option C. Business. Option D. Platform. The correct answer is B. Governance. Here is why. The governance perspective includes data curation, which organizes metadata and maintains an inventory of data products in a data catalog. Why are the other options not correct? A. Operations focuses on delivering and supporting cloud services. C. Business connects cloud investments and data use to business outcomes. D. Platform focuses on cloud infrastructure, applications, and data architecture. Exam tip. CAF governance includes data governance and data curation capabilities. Question number 481. An organization is moving its development and test environments to AWS to increase agility and reduce cost. Because these are not production workloads and the servers are not fully utilized, occasional unavailability is acceptable. What is the most cost-effective Amazon EC2 pricing model that can satisfy these requirements? Option A, reserved instances. Option B, on-demand instances. Option C, spot instances. Option D, dedicated hosts. The correct answer is C, spot instances. Here is why. Spot instances use discounted spare EC2 capacity and suit non-production workloads that can tolerate occasional interruption. Why are the other options not correct? A. Reserved instances require a commitment and suit predictable sustained use. B. On-demand instances avoid commitments but normally cost more than spot. D. Dedicated hosts address licensing or physical isolation requirements. Exam tip. Use spot for flexible workloads that can tolerate interruption. Question number 482. An organization needs to run a graph query that provides credit card users' names, addresses, and transactions. The company wants the graph to show if the names, addresses, and transactions indicates possible fraud. What AWS database service can satisfy these requirements? Option A, Amazon Document DB, with MongoDB compatibility. Option B, Amazon TimeStream. Option C, Amazon DynamoDB. Option D, Amazon Neptune. The correct answer is D, Amazon Neptune. Here is why. Neptune is a managed graph database that analyzes relationships among connected data such as users, addresses, and transactions. Why are the other options not correct? A. DocumentDB is a document database compatible with MongoDB workloads. B. TimeStream is a time series database. C. DynamoDB is a key-value and document database. Exam tip. Use Neptune when relationships and graph traversal are central. Question number 483. What AWS service is designed to help users handle large amounts of data in a data warehouse environment? Option A, Amazon RDS. Option B, Amazon DynamoDB. Option C, Amazon Redshift. Option D, Amazon Aurora. The correct answer is C, Amazon Redshift. Here is why. Amazon Redshift is a managed data warehouse designed to analyze large volumes of structured and semi-structured data. Why are the other options not correct? A. Amazon RDS provides managed relational transactional databases. B. DynamoDB is a NoSQL key-value and document database. D. Aurora is a managed relational database. Exam tip. Redshift is for data warehousing and large-scale analytics. Question number 484. An organization has a MariaDB database on premises. The company needs to move the data to the AWS cloud. What AWS service will host this database with the least amount of operational overhead? Option A, Amazon RDS. Option B, Amazon Neptune. Option C, Amazon S3. Option D, Amazon DynamoDB. The correct answer is A, Amazon RDS. Here is why. Amazon RDS supports MariaDB and manages infrastructure tasks such as provisioning, backups, patching, and failure recovery. Why are the other options not correct? B. Neptune is a graph database. C. Amazon S3 is object storage, not a MariaDB database host. D. DynamoDB is a NoSQL database and does not run MariaDB. Exam tip. Use RDS for managed relational engines such as MariaDB. Question number 485. An organization needs to provide one of its employees with access to Amazon RDS. The company also needs to limit the interaction to only the AWS CLI and AWS Software Development Kits, SDKs. What combination of actions should the company take to satisfy these requirements while following the principles of least privilege? Choose 2. Option A. Create an IAM user and provide AWS Management Console access only. Option B. Create an IAM user and provide programmatic access only. Option C. Create an IAM role and provide AWS Management Console access only. Option D. Create an IAM policy with administrator access and attach it to the IAM user. E. Create an IAM policy with Amazon RDS access and attach it to the IAM user. The correct answer is B. Create an IAM user and provide programmatic access only. E. Create an IAM policy with Amazon RDS access and attach it to the IAM user. Here is why. Programmatic credentials support CLI and SDK access. An RDS-specific policy limits permissions to the service required by the employee. Why are the other options not correct? A. Console-only access does not support the required CLI and SDK use. C. A console-only role does not provide the requested access method. D. Administrator access grants far more permission than required. Exam tip. Match credential type and permissions to the required access method. Question number 486. An organization runs an on-premises contact center for customers. The company needs to migrate to a cloud-based solution that can deliver artificial intelligence features to improve user experience. What AWS service can satisfy these requirements? Option A. AWS Wavelength. Option B. AWS IAM Identity Center, AWS Single Sign-On. Option C. AWS Direct Connect. Option D. Amazon Connect. The correct answer is D. Amazon Connect. Here is why. Amazon Connect is a managed cloud contact center service with AI-powered capabilities that can improve customer and agent experiences. Why are the other options not correct? A. Wavelength provides low-latency services in telecommunications networks. B. IAM Identity Center manages workforce access. C. Direct Connect provides dedicated network connectivity to AWS. Exam tip. Amazon Connect provides a managed cloud contact center. Question number 487. An organization needs to centrally manage its employees' access to multiple AWS accounts. What AWS service or feature should the company use to satisfy this requirement? Option A. AWS Identity and Access Management Access Analyzer. Option B. AWS Secrets Manager. Option C. AWS IAM Identity Center. Option D. AWS Security Token Service, AWS STS. The correct answer is C. AWS IAM Identity Center. Here is why. IAM Identity Center centrally manages workforce access to multiple AWS accounts and applications through one sign-in experience. Why are the other options not correct? A. IAM Access Analyzer identifies unintended or external access. B. Secrets Manager stores and rotates application secrets. D. AWS STS issues temporary credentials but is not the central access portal. Exam tip. Use IAM Identity Center for centralized multi-account workforce access. Question number 488. An organization runs its production workload in the AWS cloud. The company needs to choose one of the AWS support plans. What of the AWS support plans can satisfy these requirements at the lowest cost? Option A, developer. Option B, enterprise on-ramp. Option C, enterprise. Option D, business. The correct answer is D, business. Here is why. Business support was historically the lowest cost AWS support plan recommended for organizations running production workloads. Why are the other options not correct? A. Developer support was intended primarily for development and testing use cases. B. Enterprise on-ramp provided more proactive assistance at a higher cost. C. Enterprise provided the highest level of support and was more expensive. Exam tip. Historical production workload questions selected business support as the minimum. Question number 489. An organization needs a threat detection service that will continuously monitor its AWS accounts, workloads, and Amazon S3 buckets for malicious activity and unauthorized behavior. What AWS service meets these requirements? Option A. AWS Shield. Option B. AWS Firewall Manager. Option C. Amazon Guard Duty. Option D. Amazon Inspector. The correct answer is C. Amazon Guard Duty. Here is why. Guard Duty continuously analyzes AWS data sources to detect malicious activity and unauthorized behavior across accounts and workloads. Why are the other options not correct? A. AWS Shield provides DDoS protection. B. Firewall Manager centrally manages supported firewall and security policies. D. Inspector identifies software vulnerabilities and unintended exposure. Exam tip. Guard Duty detects threats, Inspector manages vulnerabilities. Question number 490. An organization needs to use automated video analysis to identify employees that are accessing its offices. What AWS service can satisfy this requirement? Option A. Amazon Rekognition. Option B. Amazon Poly. Option C. Amazon Cognito. Option D. AWS Lambda. The correct answer is A. Amazon Rekognition. Here is why. Amazon Rekognition analyzes images and video and can compare faces to help identify people appearing in recorded or streaming video. Why are the other options not correct? B. Amazon Poly converts text to speech. C. Cognito provides application identity and authentication. D. Lambda runs event-driven code but is not the video analysis service. Exam tip. Rekognition analyzes images, video, objects, and faces. Question number 491. An organization migrated to the AWS cloud. Now the company pays for services on an as-needed basis. What advantage of cloud computing is the company benefiting from? Option: stop spending money running and maintaining data centers. Option B: increase speed and agility. Option C: go global in minutes. Option D: trade fixed expense for variable expense. The correct answer is D: trade fixed expense for variable expense. Here is why. Paying for services only as needed replaces much upfront infrastructure spending with usage-based variable expenses. Why are the other options not correct? A. This concerns eliminating data center operations. B. Speed and agility concern rapid experimentation and provisioning. C. Going global concerns worldwide deployment. Exam tip. Pay-as-you-go converts many fixed costs into variable expenses. Question number 492. What AWS service or feature gives users the ability to provision AWS infrastructure programmatically? Option A. AWS Cloud Development Kit, AWS CDK. Option B. Amazon Code Guru. Option C. AWS Config. Option D. AWS Code Commit. The correct answer is A. AWS Cloud Development Kit, AWS CDK. Here is why. AWS CDK lets developers define AWS infrastructure with supported programming languages and deploy it through infrastructure as code. Why are the other options not correct? B. CodeGuru provides code quality and performance recommendations. C. AWS Config tracks resource configuration and compliance. D. CodeCommit is a source code repository service. Exam tip. AWS CDK defines cloud infrastructure by using programming languages. Question number 493. An organization needs to migrate a company's on-premises container infrastructure to the AWS cloud. The company needs to prevent unplanned administration and operation cost and adapt to a serverless architecture. What AWS service can satisfy these requirements? Option A, Amazon Connect. Option B, AWS Fargate. Option C, Amazon Lightsail. Option D, Amazon EC2. The correct answer is B, AWS Fargate. Here is why. Fargate provides serverless compute for containers, removing the need to provision and operate the underlying servers. Why are the other options not correct? A. Amazon Connect is a cloud contact center service. C. Lightsail provides simplified virtual servers and application bundles. D. Amazon EC2 requires management of virtual server instances. Exam tip. Fargate runs containers without managing servers. Question number 494. An e-commerce company has deployed a new web application on Amazon EC2 instances. The company needs to distribute incoming HTTP traffic evenly across all running instances. What AWS service or resource can satisfy this requirement? Option A, Amazon EC2 auto-scaling. Option B, Application Load Balancer. Option C, Gateway Load Balancer. Option D, Network Load Balancer. The correct answer is B, Application Load Balancer. Here is why. An application load balancer distributes HTTP and HTTPS requests across healthy targets such as EC2 instances. Why are the other options not correct? A. EC2 auto-scaling changes instance capacity but does not distribute traffic. C. Gateway Load Balancer deploys and scales virtual network appliances. D. Network Load Balancer primarily distributes Layer 4 traffic. Exam tip. Use an ALB for HTTP and HTTPS application traffic. Question number 495. An organization wants its Amazon EC2 instances to be in different locations but share the same geographic area. The company also needs to use multiple power grids and independent networking connectivity for the EC2 instances. What solution meets these requirements? Option A, use EC2 instances in multiple edge locations in the same AWS region. Option B, use EC2 instances in multiple availability zones in the same AWS region. Option C, use EC2 instances in multiple Amazon Connect locations in the same AWS region. Option D, use EC2 instances in multiple AWS Artifact locations in the same AWS region. The correct answer is B, use EC2 instances in multiple availability zones in the same AWS region. Here is why. Availability zones are separate locations within one region with independent power, cooling, and networking infrastructure. Why are the other options not correct? A. Edge locations do not provide general-purpose EC2 hosting. C. Amazon Connect locations are not EC2 infrastructure locations. D. AWS Artifact locations do not host EC2 instances. Exam tip. Multiple availability zones provide isolated infrastructure within one region. Question number 496. An organization needs to gain insights from its data and build interactive data visualization dashboards. What AWS service can satisfy these requirements? Option A, Amazon SageMaker. Option B, Amazon Rekognition. Option C, Amazon QuickSight. Option D, Amazon Kinesis. The correct answer is C, Amazon QuickSight. Here is why. Amazon QuickSight is a business intelligence service for analyzing data and creating interactive visualizations and dashboards. Why are the other options not correct? A. SageMaker AI builds, trains, and deploys machine learning models. B. Rekognition analyzes images and video. D. Kinesis processes real-time streaming data. Exam tip. QuickSight provides managed business intelligence dashboards. Question number 497. What option is AWS responsible for under the AWS Shared Responsibility Model? Option A, Network and Firewall Configuration. Option B, Client-Side Data Encryption. Option C, Management of User Permissions. Option D, Hardware and Infrastructure. The correct answer is D, Hardware and Infrastructure. Here is why. AWS is responsible for securing and maintaining the physical facilities, hardware, networking, and infrastructure that run AWS services. Why are the other options not correct? A. Customers configure their network controls and firewall rules. B. Customers control client-side data encryption. C. Customers manage identities, permissions, and access policies. Exam tip. AWS secures the cloud, customers secure their workloads in the cloud. You have completed Part 9 of the CLF-C02 practice series. Continue your preparation by opening the complete playlist and watching the remaining parts in sequence. Please like this video, subscribe to Tech with Kaushik, and enable notifications for more certification exam preparation content. Share your score, questions, or feedback in the comments. Thank you for watching. See you in the next part.